Hey guys, so this is my video about the union with Christ. The first part of this video is going to be me discussing what union with Christ looks like as I have understood it best. And after that, I will discuss what my union with Christ looks like. Hopefully everything that I say makes sense, and if not, please don't hesitate to ask me a question in this week's module discussion. Here we go. Union with Christ first begins with the believer abiding in Christ. We can find a lot of talk about abiding in Christ in John chapter 15. Here we are given a clear illustration of what abiding in Christ looks like: a vine and branches. The vine, or the sturdy part, represents Christ, and the branches, the weaker parts and the ones that depend on the vine, represent us, or believers. This illustration shows that by abiding in Christ, we should be depending upon Him to give us what we need to continue on our spiritual walk and not just trying to survive by our own strength. Abiding in Christ can also be seen as obedience to Christ. One way that the union of Christ can be characterized is as Christ in us. So the language of saying that Christ is in us is not a foreign phrase. When somebody gets saved, we might say that they have accepted Jesus into their heart. When talking about the union of Christ and saying that Christ is in us, we are talking about the same thing. So when an individual has a union with Christ, they have accepted Christ into them and to influence all that they do. Because the root of an individual's choices comes from their heart, their conscience, and their soul. So when it is Christ that resides inside of them, it is reflected through their actions. Some verses that support that a union in Christ characterizes Christ in us are Colossians 1:27 and Galatians 2:20. So Colossians 1:27 says, God wanted to make known among the Gentiles the glorious wealth of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And the second verse that I have that supports the idea of Christ inside us is Galatians 2:20, which says, And I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So those are just two examples of Bible verses that illustrate Christ being inside of us. Another way that the union of Christ can be characterized is as Christ with us. So this is the idea that as we go throughout life, Christ is with us and wants to help and guide us, if we allow him to. So we have to give him control of our life. The phrase Christ with us is a much more intimate view of our relationship with Christ than Christ in us. This phrase is also meant to complement the phrase Christ in us. If we stop and think about it, can we have one without the other? If you're truly abiding in Christ and you're in union with him, are you able to have Christ in your heart but not with you? To me, it all just makes sense that if I'm abiding in Christ, I'm being obedient to him and his word, and I have made the choice to allow him into my heart, then I'm also going to have him with me by my side. A unique aspect of being with Christ is that it is a present relationship that points to a future relationship. So by being with Christ, the past occurrence of death and resurrection with Christ, so what he did for us, is connected to the new existence for the Christian. I thought that was awesome, and that helped me to better understand the idea of Christ with us or with me. So now that we've gone through what the idea of a union in Christ looks like for, say, in general terms, for me, a union with Christ has looked like me coming to know him. That was freshman year of college during a fall Bible conference with Clayton King, and I am now a senior in college, so we're about 4 years into this relationship. But it didn't start right at the beginning of what that union in Christ truly looks like until I would say recently, when I had made some bad decisions that affected my course in college, and it took me a while to realize that by making those decisions I had hurt myself. But once I asked forgiveness for those decisions that I had made, and went to the right people and asked them for forgiveness after telling them the events, and then just truly abiding in Christ and seeing what grace looked like. That helped me to better understand what a relationship with Christ looks like and what a true union with Christ looks like. So this whole unit has been awesome in helping me to better understand how I should proceed in my relationship with Christ and what it can look like when I allow myself to abide in Him, truly obey Him and His Word, and just go on like living for Him. So that was short and sweet compared to the beginning of this video, but that is what my union in Christ looks like now. I hope you all enjoyed this video and that it wasn't too confusing.